it's one thing to sort of sitting back and sort of handling the technical side of all things, and then it's yet another in order to sort of try to present at the same time. So I hope you'll all bear with me. But one of the things that I wanted to talk about today is with remote learning. I mean, I think one of the things that we've seen a lot of is kind of going back to the basics and worksheets and sort of the basics of instruction. And a lot of that makes sense. It's hard for kids who don't have resources, don't have internet, don't have other things. But I think all of our sessions today, we're trying to give people options. They're not going to work for all kids, but we want to make sure that they work, but I think they can work for many kids to get kids engaged. And today we're going to talk a little bit about some of the techniques that you may be able to use to sort of help engage your kids in a little bit more peer-to-peer learning and collaborative problem solving. So that's what I'm going to focus my talk on today. Okay, but I'm going to start by just sort of getting a sense of like how overwhelmed do people feel right now about remote learning? Are you on the like, yes, I feel like I'm, you know, several weeks into this now and I really got it? Or are you ready to film your own video tirade in your car about how you feel about remote learning? So the first thing that I'm going to do is I want us to sort of get back into those breakout rooms again, give people a chance to introduce yourself, number one. So if we can start off with each person sort of who is ready and able to participate at the moment, to sort of turn on your video, turn on your audio, and just introduce yourself. Say where you're from, what you teach. If you're not an educator, but or are sort of school adjacent, let us know. And then share, after everyone's sort of done those introductions, try sharing a success or a failure that you've had with remote learning so far. And so that will give us a sense of like whether or not the breakout rooms are sort of a good set, because we'll be sort of going back in and out of those throughout the day. Okay. So thank you so much for sort of trying along with these collaborations. One of the reasons that we are sharing the idea of breakout rooms so much today is because we feel like they can be a really interesting way to get at some of that peer-to-peer learning, giving kids the chance to sort of be able to engage with each other. So all of us may be feeling very frustrated as educators right now about remote learning, but many of your parents and students are going to be feeling even less prepared and more overwhelmed. And so it's really important that we keep that in mind. Anytime we're asking students to do something that's sort of going above and beyond, anytime, that often means we're asking parents to arrange for kids to be doing things that are above and beyond. So thank you. So some of these ground rules, I borrowed these from a great website, mathagency.org, which has a lot of really great resources. But when I'm working with students on problem solving, one of the first things I ask them to do is to sort of say, okay, I'm going to try these different things when I'm going to be working in problem solving. I'm going to start by looking for something that I do know. When I'm creating problems for kids, I'm trying to look for ones where there's lots of different entry points, right? If I don't have a lot of knowledge about this, I think I could do something. But I could also, these are problems that you can also get really advanced with. But from the kids' perspective, I want to start with something that I do know. I'm never done because I can always ask the next question. We don't want to sort of, it's not a one solution kind of problem when we're dealing with problem solving or really rich problem solving. It's like I can, even if I answer the question that's on the page, what is that? What else could you figure out based on that? Like keep your mind working, keep your mind active. You may be asked to share your work. And sometimes that's scary, but it's part of the way that we all learn. I'm going to work together with the people around me, and I'm going to value their strengths. So everyone likes to has both strengths and weaknesses, and everyone likes it when people appreciate and value their strengths. And so that's something that we can do as a community. I will make mistakes, but I recognize that they are where my brain grows the most. If I'm never making a mistake, it means that I'm staying at a level where I'm not trying to grow. I'm not trying to learn, because if I'm not making a mistake, it means that I'm not like pushing myself hard enough. And so those moments when you're making a mistake are those moments where your brain goes, aha, and that's where you are really learning and you're really growing, okay? So today, the problem that I'm gonna have everyone work on together is a problem, the context. This is a lot of words. I'm just going to tell you a story. That we have a kid, his name's Xavier, and he loves banana bread, and his mom like makes all these like little mini loaves. And it's his birthday, and she's made 10 of these little mini loaves for his birthday party. Okay. They set out tables in each room for his friends to sit and eat outside, right? They have a big table. They put 6 friends and 3 loaves of bread on the outside table. The kitchen has a small table with 3 friends, so they just put 2 loaves of bread on that table. And then the living room had the biggest table with 8 friends, so they put 5 loaves of bread on that table. Each table shared the bread equally among the friends sitting there, but did they get the same amount? Okay, and how much did each friend get who was sitting in each of these different rooms? Okay, what I'm going to do next is I'm going to set you up with a place where you can model, okay, what's happening in this problem. So I'm going to show you, this is a link that I'm going to put in the chat. And here it is. And that's going to take you here. This is a version of our software that's not connected into the data, so that you don't have to have a login, you don't have to have a password, but it will not save your work because you don't have those things. But it will allow you to sort of draw out your ideas. And so here down in the corner, you'll notice, let me get rid of some of the Zoom stuff. I have basically the ability to sort of drag out and create some loaves of bread. When I'm in this move mode, I can sort of move them around. When I'm in the tick mode, I can sort of create divisions wherever I want. And then when I'm in the paint mode, I can sort of choose the different colors. Okay, so your quest for the next few minutes is to just work on this kitchen table problem, okay? And think about not just how you would draw the solution, but also think about how you think your students would draw the solution, okay? Does that make sense to everybody? Oh, if you need to erase anything that you've made, make sure you're in the move mode, and then you can grab anything with your fist and then press the delete on your keyboard. Okay, so that was actually also a little bit of a preview of Juno, who's the artist who's going to be playing tonight at 8 during our closing. So for those of you who want to come back and hear her music, as well as the music that she's done that's more math related for musology. Okay, so now that everyone's hopefully gotten a chance to play around a little bit with the software, I want to talk a bit about sort of how some of the ways that we might support small group discussions, especially if you've got students who haven't done a lot of discussions before, students who are younger, students who just need a little bit more structure. Sometimes it can be really helpful to give them sort of a role or something that they're supposed to be doing. So if I were doing this with my class, I might have my breakout groups already pre-assigned. So I know who's going to be in which group. That helps me sort of the same way that I would in my class, be a little bit more thoughtful about sort of pairing kids together who might work well together. But then I might also give everybody a role, or at least define what the roles are. And give kids a structure that says, okay, this is what the first person does. First person, you just read the problem and you ask to make sure that everyone heard and understood, okay? And then the second person is going to share their answer and explain their solution step by step. And then they were going to ask if everyone heard and understood. And then they may ask the others if they got the same solution, right? Did you get the same thing? Didn't? How did you do differently? Okay, so then the third person's role, this is where sort of the discussions, you know, can get a little bit interesting. That person is supposed to restate their teammate's solution, right? So like, what did the person 2 say? say that in your own words to make sure that that you're on the same page. You can agree and add details, or you can disagree and explain why. And then you also want to ask if everyone heard and understood. And then the last person's role is to restate the solution the team agrees on, right? And then check to make sure each team member is ready to explain their group solution. Okay, now it could be that teams can come up with multiple solutions. It could be your students are like pros already at sort of running their own problem solving discussion. But if they're not, these are the types of supports that might help them a little bit. So when I send you off to the breakout room, what I would love is for somebody to sort of share their screen and discuss their solutions, right? You may want to model this a little bit. The first person can just read, and then the second person can talk about sort of how they solved the solutions. Okay, and then if anything, if you need sort of help in your breakout room, you can sort of ask for help. If you want to sort of come back to the main room, and we can sort of push you off into a different room. Okay, does that make sense to everybody? Okay, it seems like we're having people roll back in from their breakout rooms. So this is a point, we haven't done this yet today, but I'm interested in trying to see if there's anybody who would like to sort of share something back from their small group. There's this process for raising your hand in Zoom. So if you click on the participants tab, you should see the option to kind of raise your hand. So if you would like to sort of share out a little bit about what your groups were talking about, I'd love to sort of feature that. Okay. Oh, and Jay Holmes, I'm going to unmute you. I actually was listening in your breakout room to sort of what you were screen sharing, what you were showing. So I would love to sort of have you explain that a little bit to everyone. So Jay Holmes, you've been unmuted.
All right, thank you, Kara. Yeah, I was sharing my screen and just how I set up the problem. You know, one of the moves that I always use is individual think time. So I really appreciated that you had that created in the lesson. Of course, we had some technology issues, and we're very compacted here.
Yeah.
But I love the feature of being able to draw and think through things. Certainly having the protocols around who gets to speak, and that I think was a big wonder for me, because even in real life, when you put students at a table and you say, okay, discuss, if you don't have some type of structure for their interaction, it yields silence. And so, the other piece too is like we were a little bit unsure about the problem because we'd seen it, and then we went to the breakout room, and we had to kind of remember it. So as you were presenting the problem, I was writing things down, and so we weren't exactly sure like whether we were just supposed to focus on the kitchen and that. So those were a couple of things that were happening and we were wondering about.
Yeah, so in here, I was wanting to kind of, what happens, these little arrows will actually bring you to the different parts of the problem.
Okay.
But because everybody is, and we've broken it out that way because for kids, it's actually helpful if things are on different pages. But for this, because nobody's work is being saved, every time you click on one of those arrows, it blanks out your work. So that is, so I was hoping that, I didn't want to have people get upset. I mean, understandably, when you are working in a particular thing and you've done this whole thing and then you flip over and then all of a sudden your work is gone. So the work that even I had done a minute ago in the kitchen, but within the system more broadly, your kids' work is saved and they can sort of go back and forth. I was also noticing, and in one of the groups, and I actually had this student solution ready. In one of the groups, people were having this discussion about basically about this idea. And this is from sort of a 5th grade class that we were working with. We were using this problem as an entry point into fractions, or another way to think about division. Or fractions can be thought of as division. And one of the, basically one of the 5th graders wrote this on her screen, like, is this 2/3 or is it 2/6? Because kids are so used to this idea of, so used to this idea of, oh, there are 6 pieces and 2 of them are colored, so it must be that each person gets 2/6. And then you're able to sort of draw out, hey, well, that's 2/6 of 2 loaves or 2/6 of 1 loaf, and really kind of try to get at some of that conversation. When you say somebody has 2/6 of a loaf of bread, or 2/6 of the bread, of all of the bread. And so we were able to have a really nice kind of class discussion about that, and about how with these models, is it clear, like what's the whole, right? And obviously if I'm drawing out that one, you know, right next to it, I could have another example. Let me see if I can shrink everything that I need to get out of my way while I'm here in this sharing mode. But basically I could think about comparing that more directly to basically, this would be the 2/6, right? That would be only that amount. No matter how many pieces of bread that I put out, 2/6 of a loaf is going to be 2/6 of 1 loaf. Anyway, yeah. So it was interesting that that basically one of the groups was having that very same conversation. Which one is it? And it can be a really sort of helpful conversation to sort of get kids thinking about it. One of the things about this problem that we found is that all kids are kind of have a point where they feel like they can start and they can get into it. It's one of those like low floor problems, but you can actually start to get into some of the bigger ideas about it. One of the other interesting things that I heard when I was kind of dipping into a couple of the groups, and obviously if I were doing this with a smaller group, I would remember who was saying what and sort of draw them out during this whole group share. But talking about sort of different strategies for how you divide your shape. And so if you're thinking about 6 pieces, you might think about putting a piece in the middle first and then thinking, oh, I've got 3 on each side. Versus some kids, they'll start making pieces and then they'll run out, right? Instead of sort of thinking about that middle first. So those are just some of the ways that we can sort of use this set of tools. And this set of tools is a prototype for us. It's something that we've sort of just started developing, and so we'll be doing more with it throughout. So let me look back to the chat. Yeah, I agree, Jennifer. The misconception is almost always about what's the whole, and that the denominator is not the total number of pieces, it's the total number of equal pieces in one whole, and whatever you're sort of defining as your whole. And it's a super common misconception that will follow kids into high school beyond adults, don't have a very strong understanding of that particular concept. Great. Okay, so, but one of the things that we have found in sort of talking with a lot of our school districts and schools that we work with, some of them have said like, hey, no virtual meetings. Or if you're allowed to have virtual meetings, it has to be a Google Hangout, and they don't have breakout rooms. So it becomes harder to schedule you know, small group meetings if you can't sort of automatically send kids to a group and then come back. And so for that, I just wanted to have everyone play around a little bit with this idea of a Google Slides based quest, where you could arrange to have kids use a particular piece of software and basically add screenshots of what they're using. So this link, let me take this link and put it into, oops. Okay. This link, let me see if I can copy it. It's amazing when all of the different Zoom windows are all in the way of things. You have to kind of move everything else around. Okay, so there, and then I can add this to the chat. What I've set up here for everyone is just the basically a blank set of slides with some instructions on the first page, like find a blank slide or add a new one, and then add a picture of your solution. I put a few instincts. So here, if I'm back in my problem solving slides, this isn't a complete solution, but I can take a screenshot of it and sort of, I can either use copy paste to just put that screenshot right in there, or if they have a saved screenshot, they can use the insert image. And then also thinking about how you can use the comments, right? So if I am writing on here, I use the text to write, hey, this is Kara's solution. I'm kind of lost, right? Somebody else could write a comment by inserting a comment and say, I think you need to color in more or have only 2 loaves of bread. So what I want you all to do again, and I'll try and play a little bit of music again, we'll see if this works, is to spend some time sort of trying out what are the different things of what does it look like, what does it feel like to have a group of people all on the same slides, sort of commenting in real time on each other's work. And so we're going to spend the next sort of 3 or 4 minutes playing around with this idea of collaborative problem solving. It's a little clunkier than being able to just talk about your work, but we know that in some sort of schools and districts, the talking about our work with each other isn't possible right now. So let's play around with this, and I'll play some music.
Just a small town girl living in a lonely world. She took the midnight train going anywhere.
Oh, good.
Just a city boy, born and raised in South Detroit.
Okay. So hopefully people got a chance to sort of explore a little bit of the Google Slides version of sort of collaborative peer-to-peer learning. Some of the things that kids do, they really like the comments, how the comments tool specifically says the name of the person and sometimes their picture of who said what. That can be a really interesting way and a way to sort of push kids to sort of have that way of interacting with each other, and they can have some back and forth conversations. I kept looking out to see if anyone had the less common but still popular answer to this kitchen problem. I didn't see it, but basically there's a lot of kids will start off with that. They'll just split each of the loaves in half, and then they'll say, okay, well, I had 3 friends. So each friend got kind of 1 piece. Oh, and I even didn't do this right. I was thinking about the 8th solution. Yeah, but basically you could have a situation where you're thinking about sort of the equivalence of fractions addition, how 2/3 is the same thing as 1/2 plus 1/6. And it becomes a really interesting conversation because kids don't know what to call, many kids don't know what to call this piece right here, these 3 pieces that they've sort of split up into. They're not sure if they should call those thirds. And so you can use the tools as well to sort of talk to them about how, okay, well, 1/3 would actually be this big. So what are these pieces? What is this size? You actually need to think about sort of taking each of those and splitting them into half. And so each of these is 1/6. So anyway, that's just another place that some students will likely go with it, or if they don't go there with them. All this time sort of always ends up going a lot faster than you think it will. But I just wanted to give you a little bit of a sense of sort of who we are at Teachley. We've been working on this problem solving software, but that's kind of, we have a whole bunch of other stuff that we do, all of which is free through the summer. And so basically we've got students, we do a lot of games, mostly for elementary school content, although a lot of junior high school and special ed teachers, especially in the older grades, love the games for sort of remediation. And then for teachers, we have sort of data reporting and instructional resources. So we have a lot of our games are on iPad for schools. Our newest one in Market Bay, we're about to launch sort of a version that will also work on phones. But this one is one where it's an immersive world where kids are buying and selling in order to create apartments or decorate their apartments, and they each have a store and they have an apartment. It's very kind of Animal Crossing. But we've got a whole bunch of games from very early edition all the way up to fractions. We also have a whole bunch, our fractions stuff is all of it's web-based. And so this is sort of accessible on any laptop or computer. And so we've got this 3D racing world where kids are sort of trying to estimate where fractions belong on number lines. They can sort of slow down, stop, and think, but if they make mistakes, there's sort of a dashboard that will lead them through understanding how, for fifths, you need to split that whole into 5 equal pieces. And then you'll move 2 of those pieces. So we also have a whole a set of our operations games. Demo versions of them are available on the BrainPop Game Up platform. And so we've got a demo version of Animals, Subtractables, and Multiplists that are on all devices. And we are working furiously right now to do cross-platform for all of the games in a much more rigorous way. Because we've recognized with this crisis that kids just have all kinds of devices at home, way more than they have that typically they see at school. Great. So I'm going to check into the chat and see. Yeah. Great. I would love to sort of connect more with folks. Slide 3 shows this, reminds me how to delete. Oh yeah, so inside of the problem solving software, and again, prototype, so we're working on it. If you want to delete the whole model, when you're in the move mode, you can grab it and then just press delete on your keyboard. If you want to delete a tick, you can just grab one of the tick pieces and then delete on your keyboard. We have some tutorial videos that aren't part of this this version that I shared with you all that sort of explains some of those things. Any other questions? Great. Cool.
Kara, I'm sorry, I'm going to unmute for just a quick second.
Yeah, of course. This is my partner.
Hi, everybody. Someone is asking, actually, a couple of people have asked for the link to the software again. So if you have a moment, could you share that again for everyone, or we can repaste it in?
Yes, I will. And these slides are definitely going to be shared in the whole thing tomorrow. But I would suggest, if you're interested in the software, I would create an account with us because your kids are going to get frustrated with this version because it doesn't save their work. And so, and we needed that because we knew we were going to have hundreds of people. Yeah, and the accounts that we have are are free. And this is actually a tool set that we developed with foundation support. And so even beyond this school year, if you work in a school that that serves predominantly low-income students, predominantly students of color, we're committed to giving free access to the problem-solving tool set for those schools. Oh, the website URL, I'm adding it here, Teachley, teachley.com, and you should be able to create your account there. Great.